Quebec is getting a new multi-billion-dollar electric vehicle battery plant. Swedish battery manufacturing giant Northvolt will build the mega factory east of Montreal. It's expected to create up to 3,000 jobs. The federal and provincial governments invested in capital $2.7 billion to make it happen.
This facility will be able to produce batteries for 1 million electric vehicles a year. And at full production capacity, the plant will contribute up to $1.6 billion to our economy.
We're talking about $30 billion of investment, minimum 16,000 jobs, well-paid jobs of the future.
Industry Minister François-Philippe Champagne joins me now to discuss this deal. Minister, good to have you back on the show.
Thank you very much, David. A great day. A great day for Canada.
This is a carbon copy of sort of the terms of the deal we saw with Stellantis, we saw with Volkswagen, $2.7 billion in capital up front, and another $4.6 in production subsidies for batteries they make and batteries they sell. So it's the same sort of terms we've seen. These are adding up, though. These are getting expensive. I mean, this is now 3 of these deals you've done. Is this it for Canada, or is there a limit on how many more of these you can do?
Well, I would say we're close to the end. I mean, we've been very clear from the beginning that we would match the subsidies that have been offered south of the border, but we would do that in a more Canadian way. So very strategic, very limited, very targeted. We did that with Volkswagen. We did that with Stellantis, now with Northvolt. You know, the mission I had when we started was always to make sure that Canada would keep its fair share of the auto sector in North America. Because that was, you know, as we see this generational opportunity where we're moving from combustion engine to electric vehicle, I wanted to make sure that we could capture our fair share of the market. And I think with Northvolt today, we've achieved that in the sense that now we're well positioned to build not only batteries, but I would say the green vehicle of the future.
So you've talked about a break-even point for this investment of 5 to 9 years. It was 5, I remember, when we spoke, when you were in St. Thomas for the Volkswagen announcement. And you know this return date has been challenged and questioned by the parliamentary budget officer. So how confident should Canadians be that these deals will actually pay off in the timeframes that you're spelling out?
Well, they should feel confident because you will remember in the Parliamentary Budget Officer report, he said to Canadians, I'm only looking at 8.6% of the total deal. So obviously, he came with a different number. If you look at the entirety of the deal, you would come to something much closer to what we have, which is based on international standards. So it's not like we made these numbers. You look at the plants of Volkswagen in Spain, you look at the multiples they bring in the economy. This is well documented internationally. So what the Parliamentary Budget Officer did was only to look like at the walls, not looking at the ecosystem. But I think when you take the ecosystem, you come to that. But using his same metrics, I think, you know, 5 to 9 years, and then you get a return of $1.6 billion per year in the economy for the next 50 years and beyond. I would say if you ask any bankers, that's a good deal because we're getting our money and we're getting a multiple of our money. And we're building, I would say, the economy of the future. We're going to build the greenest battery in the world right here in Canada to serve the North American market. I think that's, you know, it's a home run again today for Canada.
There's 2 more things, though. This plant needs to make it work. It talks about 3,000 new employees. Quebec is going through a labor shortage, particularly in the manufacturing sector. And Premier Legault was talking about the need for clean electricity for this to work and mentioned hydro projects in Newfoundland and Labrador that are a long way from ever going anywhere. I mean, how big of a challenge is it to get that power in another province where there's a troubled history between the two?
Well, I would say power is the most important thing today. I must say people often talk about the subsidies, but I would say there's 5 things that really attract these massive investments. First is talent. The second thing is the ecosystems we've been able to build. The third one is around critical mineral and the proximity to resources, market, and assembly line. The fourth one is really green power. And the fifth is access to market. So the power component of the discussion was paramount. You know, by the way, when I started to talk to the CEO of Northvolt about 2.5 years ago, we were not even on the radar screen. They selected us over 70 jurisdictions. And it started with a vision. I said, what's your vision? Well, he said, I want to build the greenest battery in the world. Then I said, there's only one place you can do that, and it's Canada. And so the point about power is paramount. And I think, like you said, Premier Legault was clear today. Quebec needs to generate more green power. It's a key differentiator for us to be able to attract investment in this province.
But if they don't get a new deal with Newfoundland and Labrador on refurbishing Upper Churchill and renewing that beyond 2041, or developing Gull Island, as Premier Legault was talking about, but Premier Fury isn't necessarily talking about in the province where that potential asset rests, I mean, can you get the juice you need for this plant?
Well, I would hope they would talk, because honestly, this is about national opportunities. You know, when you're talking about a plant either in Quebec or in Ontario, I mean, if you look at the ecosystem and the thousands of small and medium-sized businesses, it has a rippling effect across the nation. So to the extent that they're talking, it's a good thing, because I think, like you said, we're talking about the Atlantic Loop, we're talking about adding generation of electricity and clean energy is really, really a differentiator. I can tell you, the way we have attracted some of these investments, it's always about the power capacity, power generation, green electricity. So I think it's in both provinces' best interest to really come to an understanding, and so that we can continue to bring these investments in the country.
I want to get your reaction, if I can, Minister, to something Premier Daniel Smith said earlier on the show. I know you work with industry in Alberta on emissions reduction and potentially in investments in electricity generation as part of your job in innovation and industry minister. She has launched a national campaign and says she's drawing up legislation under the Sovereignty Act to challenge Minister Guilbeault's clean energy regulations. She says it will leave Albertans in the dark. It could have Albertans thrown in jail. And she's asking Canadians to oppose these challenges. Do you share any of her concerns that Alberta can't get its grid green by 2035? Are you hearing that from industry players? And how would you respond to a challenge from Daniel Smith?
Well, I would say I work well with the Premier of Alberta. You know, when I talk to her, our focus is to attract a big investment in the province. We have a number of them coming, big ones that will be as generational in scope as what you have seen in the auto sector. So I don't have the full details of what has been proposed, because as you might expect, today I was really focused on landing this landmark deal here in Quebec. But what I can tell you, when I talk to her and her team, we always find a way forward, because our ambition, our common ambition is about growth, it's about job, it's about positioning Alberta and the West to succeed in the economy of the 21st century. So listen, I'll look at what she's been proposing, but I feel confident that you know, when we focus on the right thing, we always find a path forward.
Industry Minister François-Philippe Champagne, thanks for fighting through the Montreal traffic to make it on the show. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, and on time, so thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Minister.